Welcome back to my channel. If you are new, my name is Sarah. I am a wife and mom to 2 little boys, and in today's video it is actually going to be a combination of 7 of my most popular videos so far. These are all what's for dinner videos, and I know personally while I'm watching YouTube videos, if I'm also doing something, I like longer videos so that I don't have to keep stopping and finding a new video. And so I thought I would go ahead and put together my top 7 recipe videos for you. If you are the same, just want to have something on in the background, if you want to get a ton of different meal ideas, this is definitely the video for you. So a few things before we get started. First of all, don't forget to subscribe. I try to put out 2 videos a week, and I do mostly cooking content and grocery hauls. And then also down in the description box, there will be timestamps for every recipe shown in this video. So if you are watching or listening and you want to reference back to one specifically, you can go down to the description box and find the timestamp for it, and it will take you directly to that part of the video. I will also include all of the recipe links in the description that used recipes in this whole video. So if I referenced a recipe myself, I will go ahead and link it down below so that you can have all of the directions right there for you. All I have to tell you, so let's go ahead and get into this video. Welcome back to my channel, everybody. You're welcome. If you are new, my name is Sarah, and today I am sharing 4 chicken dinner recipes with you. These are very easy. I would say they're budget friendly, they're family friendly. My family enjoyed them, and they are all chicken. Chicken is cheaper to buy right now than beef, so we've been eating a lot of chicken, so I thought maybe I would give you some motivation here for chicken dinners. So first, I am just starting out for this recipe. I'm going to be making some enchiladas, chicken enchiladas, and I'm just starting out by cooking my chicken in my Instant Pot. First of all, if any of you have any tips or tricks on how to get the discoloration out of the bottom of my Instant Pot insert pan, I will definitely take them, because I have scrubbed this thing and it just will not come clean. So I put my little trivet down, put the chicken on, cut some slices in it because they were still a little bit frozen, put a little bit of water in the bottom, and then seasoned it with salt, pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder. And I'm just cooking it there. If you had a rotisserie chicken, that would work really well also. Or you can cook your chicken however you prefer. If you want to make it in a pan, if you want to buy canned chicken, you could do that. So however you like your chicken. And then for the filling, it's a cream cheese chicken enchiladas. So I have cream cheese here, and then I have some garlic powder, and I'm going to throw in 1 can of diced green chilies. Then I'm going to add in some shredded cheese. I used a Cheddar Jack blend. You can use whatever you would like. And then the recipe does not call for this, and I will leave the recipe linked down in the description. And it doesn't call for black beans, but we like black beans, and I have a bunch already cooked up that have been sitting in the freezer. So I decided to go ahead and add some black beans to this as well. So for the mixture, you just mix all of that together. I used a hand mixer for it to make it a little easier, and I'm sorry that it shook the camera so bad. It was sitting on the counter. And then I just let that sit while the chicken was cooking in the Instant Pot. While the chicken was cooking, there is a sauce that you make for the top. So normally when I make enchiladas, I just buy the can of enchilada sauce. And for this recipe, you actually make your own sauce. So you just start by melting some butter, and then you add in your flour and your spices. The recipe says to use taco seasoning, but I don't purchase taco seasoning. I just use spices that have a taco flavor. So coriander, cumin, chili powder, garlic, onion, and some salt and pepper. And I just do those instead. But if you wanted to use like a pre-made taco seasoning, you could definitely do that here. So once you have all the spices in the pan, you are going to mix them around in that butter and soak up all of that butter. And then you add in your liquid. So you are going to add in your chicken. I used chicken broth. Now, this is meant to be like a thicker sauce. So add your liquid in slow so it doesn't break. And then after you get that mixed in really well and it sits for a minute, you're going to add in some sour cream and then mix that in really well also. And then I don't actually remember if the recipe calls for putting cheese in this, but I started doing it before I even thought about it. So I just went ahead and threw some cheese in here as well. We like cheese, so it didn't hurt anything. It tasted really good. And then when the chicken was done, I put it in the bowl with the mixture, and I used my hand mixer to shred the chicken just in the mixture itself. And then I am filling tortillas. I did fill them a little bit full, but I wanted to make sure we used up all of the tortillas. And I'm placing them in a greased baking dish, and I have the oven preheated already. I believe I had it at 350. I know that the recipe has a temperature on there, and our oven runs a little hot, so sometimes I don't pay attention to that very much. After I filled all of the tortillas and got them in the pan, you cover it with the sauce that you made, and then I did top it with just a little more cheese, and then you bake it. And the only point of baking it is to warm everything together because it's all cooked already. So you're melting the cheese on top and getting that sauce nice and warm and bubbly. It doesn't take very long. And then I had a very hungry, cranky toddler, and I forgot to get a video of what it looked like at the end. But this is what it looked like. They were really good, and they made really good leftovers too. So highly recommend this one. Second meal I'm going to share with you is a smothered chicken recipe. And we ate this with rice, so that's what I'm doing here. I have basmati rice, and I'm making half a cup, and I always rinse my rice before I cook it, and I'm going to be cooking it in the Instant Pot. So I just rinse it until the water is running completely clear, and then I transfer it to my Instant Pot, and I add in just a little more than equal parts water. So I have half a cup of rice, and I added just over half a cup of water. It's just, I know a lot of recipes say just do 1 to 1, but this is how I do it. And then I just add a little bit of salt and pepper to it for something like this, because the chicken will have its own sauce. You put the lid on, and you want to make sure that the knob always is on sealing before you get started. And then this cooked on manual for 6 minutes. While that was cooking, I'm just getting my chicken ready to go, so I'm trimming off some of the fatty, gross edge pieces, and then I'm going to butterfly the breasts so that they're thin, and then I also pound them out because you are going to be frying them, and you want them pretty thin, and they cook faster that way. After they are all pounded out, then I mixed up a dredge for them, because again, you're going to fry these, which is just flour, breadcrumbs, and some seasonings. I will leave this recipe also down in the description. And if I were to do this differently, I would add more breadcrumbs to this. It had more of like a flour breading, and I think the bread crispiness of the breadcrumbs would have been good. I also should mention, I forgot to make bacon. You're supposed to have bacon with this too, and I forgot to, and I think it really would have enhanced the dish a lot. So then I'm moving on to dredging my chicken. I forgot to pat the chicken dry, and I think that was a big factor in the dredge not sticking very well to the chicken. I'm not perfect in the kitchen. I've been cooking for many years, but sometimes I make mistakes, especially if I have people that are talking to me or I have a little one running around at my feet. It's just I get distracted and I forget. So then I just continue the process with all 4 pieces of chicken, making sure that I got it really well covered on both sides. After that was done, I have some oil on the stove top heated up, and I'm going to cook the chicken until it is golden brown on both sides. At first, only 3 of the chicken breast pieces fit in the pan, and they do kind of shrivel up a little bit as they're cooking. So once I got to the point where I flipped these over, I was able to add that 4th one in. And once they're done cooking, you actually just put them off to the side, and you don't cook them all the way either, because you are going to cook them again later in the sauce. So you cook them most of the way. I did most of the way so that they wouldn't have to cook in the sauce quite as long. But really here, you're just trying to get them crispy and golden and delicious. And then you set them off to the side. Once they are done cooking and they're off to the side, I added more butter to the pan and used a rubber spatula to scrape all of the drippings and the extra oil and there were like a couple little chunks of the breading. Scrape all of that off, and then you add in some flour to soak it up. I am really bad about following directions. I just kind of eyeball it, and you whisk that together. Like I was saying with the enchiladas, this is actually supposed to be a gravy. And you see how it's like really thick here? And then you add in your chicken broth. I added my chicken broth too much at a time. So this first time was fine. I added it in, whisked it around. It was great. But then when I added my second batch here, I should have added only part of that and not the whole thing, because I broke the gravy. It still tasted really good. It ended up being more of a sauce, which was okay, because we had served this over rice instead of mashed potatoes, which was what was recommended. So then when I added in the half and half, it didn't do much but create a sauce. So just keep that in mind to add your liquids slow, or it will become a sauce and not a thick gravy. I added in the Worcestershire sauce and some seasonings and whisked that together. And then this just stayed on the stove top until it was bubbly. And then you add the chicken back into the pan and let it simmer like that until the chicken is fully cooked. It only took mine about 10 minutes since I had cooked the chicken most of the way, and that's how long it took to get the chicken warmed back up too, so that we could eat. And my rice was done. So like I said, we put this on top of rice. And then we also served it with a side of broccoli. This next recipe I have to share with you, I don't have the final product of it because this was actually a day that I had my anatomy scan for baby number 2, and my mom was coming to the house to stay with Ryder for the day, so I was getting something in the crock pot for them. So she actually finished it up later on, and I wasn't going to ask her to film that. So this is a Crockpot Chicken Pot Pie. So in the crock pot, I already have 2 chicken breasts, and I just seasoned it with onion powder, garlic powder, salt, pepper, and parsley. And then I am peeling some potatoes, and I am going to dice them up into not super small pieces. And those are actually just going to go right on top of the chicken. This is kind of layered, and this was really good. We actually decided not to eat out while we were at the doctor for dinner. We decided to just come home and eat this, and it was really good. So after you get all of the potatoes chopped up and put on top, you then will add more seasoning. You want to season every layer so that it's flavorful and you don't forget anything or it's not lacking in seasoning. So I did the same seasoning: salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and some parsley. After that, you add in a bag of mixed vegetables or whatever vegetables you like in your pot pie. We just have this bag of frozen vegetables mixed in there. And then you put 1 can of cream of chicken soup on top. And I kind of spread it around a little bit. And then like 1 can equivalent of milk on top. And again, I seasoned this layer to make sure that it was tasty and flavorful and ready to go. This cooked all day in the crock pot until the potatoes were done and the chicken was done. And then my mom just had to shred the chicken, and she made some biscuits in the oven to go along with it. And this is just what it looked like before we put it in the crock pot. The last meal I'm sharing with you is a very simple chicken nachos. We love Mexican food, or American Mexican food, I guess is what we should probably call it. My husband usually just eats his nachos however, like the base way I make them, and then I put stuff on top. So I am just chopping up some tomato and jalapeno, some cilantro, and some green onions that I had. And that's just what I will put on my nachos later on. And then I just had one chicken breast and I cut it up into pretty thin, small pieces so that I can cook that up with some seasonings. Like in the first part of the video, if you wanted to use taco seasoning with the chicken, you totally could. I just used similar taco seasoning type spices, and then I had cut it on the cutting board that had the cilantro on it, that I had just cut the cilantro on it, so it also had some cilantro flavor as well, which was delicious. So I just cooked that in a pan with a little bit of oil, and then I started laying my chips out. When I do nachos, we do them on a sheet pan and put them in the oven so it melts the cheese and gets it really crispy. I am kind of particular about how I lay the chips so that every chip gets a nice amount of filling on them. And then after I laid them out, I decided that I should kind of split them. So one side would be my husband's, one side would be mine, since I put toppings on mine. And then I added in the refried beans that I showed in my last grocery haul. They weren't coming out of the package very well because they were cold, so I actually put them in a bowl and heated them up and then kind of drizzled them over the chips. And then my battery died and I didn't notice it until after I had already finished with the nachos and put it in the oven. But the only other thing I did is I put some nacho cheese, some Rico's nacho cheese, and then a little bit of shredded cheese, and then I tossed them in the oven and baked them at 350 for about 10 minutes. And then when they came out, that is when I added toppings to mine. So again, my husband just had his plain Jane, and I put cilantro, onion, tomato, sour cream, and hot sauce on mine. But that is everything that I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave. So I'm going to be sharing a total of 4 recipes in this video, and these were really good. I thought that they tasted pretty close to the actual recipes that we were trying to copy. So the first one here that I'm starting with is a Chick-Fil-A chicken nugget, and then we served it with waffle fries. So something I don't like about the Chick-fil-A dupe, I guess, that you can find, Sam's Club has one, I think Costco has one, I've never tried theirs though, is that it tastes a lot like pickles. And I know some recipes have pickle juice in the marinade for the chicken. This one does not, because I don't think that the Chick-fil-A nuggets taste like pickles, and so I don't like those other like knockoff types. So this, for the marinade part that you soak the chicken in, is just milk and eggs. So what I did was cut up some chicken breast into like 1/2-inch pieces and put them into this egg and milk mixture, and then I let this sit in the fridge. I think it was about a half hour, and just kind of let it marinate. Again, this doesn't have pickle juice in it, so if you like that, you could add some. I just don't think that that's what the Chick-fil-A nuggets taste like, so I was trying to find something that was different. And then I lost some of my footage here, but you're making the dry rub here, and it has breadcrumbs and flour and some seasonings in it. And I will link all of the recipes in this video. I will link down below in the description so that you can make them yourself as well if you want, and you can get the exact measurements and make sure you're not missing anything. So you just make up this dry mixture while your chicken is marinating, and then you will take your chicken from the egg milk mixture, coat it in this, and then fry it up. I'll put your favorite music on all the way baritone. Shut the lights, go infrared. We can spend all day in bed.
startled our eyes, we let go of disguise. And now there's something in the air and a sparkly shimmer on our skin, restoring everything within.
I used a cast iron skillet to fry this. If you had a deep fryer, I don't know if people still buy those, you could use that. You could also probably oven bake these, it just wouldn't give you the same flavor. So I just used olive oil in my cast iron, and I had to do this in batches because I didn't want to overcrowd the pan and then have the chicken like not crisp up on all sides. So it took a couple minutes on each side, and then I just flipped them when they were golden brown, cooked them on the other side until they were golden brown, and then I put them on a rack. You don't want to put them on a paper towel because they will get soggy as they dry. So I put them on just a rack that came with the pans, the cookie sheets that I have, so that the oil could kind of drip off of them a little bit. I could get the next batch going in the fryer.
On our tiptoes, undercover agents of the other, beyond gravel, beyond all. A bigger scale, the world inhales as we go. Gathering dust right now, and the edges have been folded once or twice. It doesn't look the same no more, 'cause the sun has made it pale.
And again, like I said, we served these with waffle fries. I had some of the Walmart version of the chicken dipping sauce, which tastes like Chick-Fil-A sauce. My husband did barbecue sauce, and I thought these were really, really good and very similar to the actual Chick-fil-A chicken nugget. So I highly recommend this one. The next recipe is going to be the Applebee's mac and cheese copycat that has the glazed chicken tenders. This is probably our favorite meal to get at Applebee's, but I don't think that they ever include enough sauce. So I wanted to try it myself. So I just bought these like pre-breaded chicken strips that I am putting in the oven, and then I'm gonna make my sauce. So in this pan, I had just fried some bacon, cut it up into crumble because you top the pasta with the bacon. And now I'm gonna make the sauce. I removed some of the grease and then just left a little bit so that it would have kind of that bacon flavor. And then we're gonna make the sauce. And so it has honey as the main foundation, I guess, and then it has soy sauce, and I'm using cocoa aminos, but you could use soy sauce if you wanted. I would recommend the low sodium, some brown sugar, water, and some lemon juice. And I got some lemon seeds in there, but I did end up taking them out later. And then it also has some vinegar and some spices, and I believe it was pepper and a little bit of cayenne, maybe some garlic and some paprika, and I used sweet paprika. I think it would be good with smoked paprika as well. And then you just want to mix that all together and let it sit on the stovetop until it starts to boil, and then let it bubble for a while. And then you need some shredded cheese for this, and I have this handy dandy little counter shredder that was giving me a hard time. Sometimes if I don't get it stuck to the counter enough, I have to like move it around a million times to get it stuck, and I was struggling this day and it kept moving around. But I love this thing because it grates your cheese just with a crank, and you don't have to use like a cheese grater, and because I'm always afraid I'm going to cut my fingers on a cheese grater. So I did just go ahead and use my own cheese here, and I will link that down below if you're interested in giving that a try. And then I have these noodles here. You can use whatever noodle you want. I can't pronounce the name of these ones, but they're good. And this is what Applebee's uses, this kind. And so I put them in the sink, and I didn't want to rinse them because I didn't want them to get super cold. So I put a little bit of olive oil on them so that they wouldn't stick together it wouldn't become like one big gross clump. Then I moved over back to the stove to make the sauce, which is really easy. So you just want to melt butter and you put in some heavy cream. I did make the full recipe for the sauce, but I didn't make a full box of pasta like it called for, and we did have a little too much of the sauce. So then once your butter and milk are melted all together, you add in your cheese. And so there's the shredded cheese that I shredded up. And I'm sorry that the lighting gets weird. The light under my stove sometimes gets picked up with my camera, and sometimes the lights from the kitchen get picked up. So I'm sorry about that. But then you also add in some Parmesan cheese and some mozzarella cheese. And then you mix them all together and just let it sit and let those cheeses melt and let all the flavors come together. And you're going to add your pasta back in and mix it around. And by this point, your sauce should be warmed up and kind of thick because you've been letting it simmer on the stovetop. So then you put your cooked chicken strips into that sauce. I put them all in there and just let them sit for a few minutes. And then to plate it, you just want to put some of your Vera mac and cheese down, put some of the chicken on top, and I cut my chicken up, and then you sprinkle it with bacon. And we serve this with some cheese stuffed garlic sticks. This meal was really good. The next recipe I'm showing you is actually 2 recipes. Both of them are copycat recipes, and it's a Panda orange chicken and Panda's fried rice recipe. I have never had their orange chicken, and I usually have my own version of fried rice that I make, but I will make my fried rice like this, and this chicken was so good. So first, I'm getting started with the sauce that's going to be for the orange chicken. So you just add in some ingredients, some cornstarch, some rice vinegar, some sesame oil, some soy sauce. Again, for this one I'm using Cocoa Aminos. A lot of sugar, a lot more sugar than I thought was going to be in this. Some vinegar, and then the zest of an orange. And you just mix those together and set them off to the side.
Why don't we go back to never wanted to end it? like something feels different from back then. Why don't we go back to, why don't we go back to? Honestly, I'm open wide. I don't feel like waking up without you by my side.
And then you also want to make like an egg dredging station for this. This is kind of similar. The way that the chicken on this is made is similar to the Chick-Fil-A chicken. And although you're seeing these recipes in the same video, this was filmed over a couple weeks, so we didn't even have these in the same week. When I do recipes like this, it's not every single night we're eating a copycat recipe. They're usually more work. Just with any of the videos I share with you, they're usually more work. And so I spaced them out. So we didn't have fried chicken back to back. But this was it. As I was making this, it was reminding me of that Chick-fil-A chicken, except you don't put milk in the egg mixture, so that it's just egg, oil, and salt and pepper for the egg mixture. And then for the breading part, it's flour and cornstarch. And I just used a pie dish because my other clear container was dirty at the time, and I needed something that I could coat the chicken in well. So you just want to mix those up.
Why don't we go back to, why don't we go back to your bed?
And then I set up a dredging station at the stove so it would make it easier. I don't like recipes like this because you have to touch the raw chicken and then you get the egg on your hand and the flour, and it's just, I don't like the feeling of it, but it tastes good. So you take the chicken and you get it coated in that egg mixture, and then you transfer it to the flour cornstarch mixture, and then similar to the Chick-fil-A chicken, you then want to fry it. Don't overcrowd your pan. Again, I used olive oil in a cast iron pan until both sides were golden brown. And then as the chicken was frying, which I had to do in batches, I was getting my fried rice ready. And so normally I'd cook the fried rice and then add the eggs, but this has you cook eggs first in oil. So I added the oil to the pan, and that's what's heating up over there. Then I was pulling the chicken out to cool as it was coming off the fire, or off of the oil, so that I could keep going with that. So going back over to my fried rice, the oil is now hot, and I added in my 2 eggs, which I did kind of whisk up beforehand. and I am just, these cooked pretty fast because that oil was hot. So I just used my fork to scramble up the eggs, and then you add in your rice. I had cooked this rice earlier in the day in the Instant Pot and let it cool completely. It's basmati rice. And so I am adding that in and kind of breaking it up, and then it's going to heat all the way through. After it's mostly heated through, you're going to add in some soy sauce. Mix that together, let that soy sauce warm up, and then add in your vegetables. It said to use like a corn pea mixture, but I just went ahead and did a mixed veggie because that's what I had in the freezer. And so it also has green beans in it as well, but that's okay. And then you add in a little bit of sesame oil at the end, and then I just let this sit on the stove and heat all the way through, make sure everything was warm while I was finishing up with the chicken. The last thing you do with the chicken is you remove like the excess oil and drippings from the pan. You want to leave just a little bit, and then you put ginger, garlic, and some red chili flakes in the bottom of the pan and get that toasted for just a minute to bring out those flavors. I didn't use very much of the red pepper flake because I didn't want it too spicy, but it actually, I could have used more. There was like no spice to it at all. So after that goes for like 30 seconds, you're going to add in that sauce mixture that we made before that had the orange zest in it. Bring that to a boil and let it simmer for a few minutes. I think I did about 5 minutes. Then all of that chicken you fried, you are going to put into this sauce to coat it up. And it was so delicious. It smelled so good. It did have kind of a vinegar smell because there was a lot of vinegar in it as it was cooking. But then the orange hit you and the ginger came out. It was really good smelling. And then last thing you have to do then after that chicken is warmed back up is just plate it up. And I would normally serve this with like a crab rangoon or something like that, but the grocery store was out when I had placed my grocery order. This is what our bowls looked like. It was absolutely delicious. So thanks guys so much for watching. That is all I have for you today. Again, I will leave the recipes down in the description box. Don't forget to subscribe before you go so you don't miss out on any videos. The first recipe we are starting off with is a Mexican street corn chicken casserole, which is a mouthful. But this is a really good recipe, and the leftovers were also really good. So highly recommend this one if you like the ingredients that will go in it. So First, I'm just starting up by cutting my chicken breast really thin. Mine were still a little frozen, so it actually made this process pretty easy. And then I just put a slit in all of them so that the juices and sauce could kind of soak down in there. So you're going to put them in a greased 9x13 is what I have. And you're going to season them with some salt, some paprika, and some garlic. And you want to do that on both sides. And then you're going to make the mixture that goes on top. So I'm using 2 small cans of corn, or you could use 1 bigger can of canned corn. You could also use frozen corn if you wanted. And then you're going to add in some mayo, sour cream, and I will leave the recipe linked down in the description box if you would like exact measurements for this. The juice of 2 limes. I actually think it calls for a specific measurement of lime juice, but I just used 2 limes. And I need to invest in one of those like citrus juicers because I always have such a hard time juicing lemons and limes, but I've been using them more lately because I think it really tastes really good. So anyway, and then you add in some chili powder, and I didn't measure this because I wanted it to our liking. So you just mix that up really well, and then you put it on top of the chicken. And I actually did this part earlier in the day and then put the chicken in the fridge until a little bit later. And then the only thing you have left to do is bake it. And after it is baked, you put on top some cilantro and some queso fresco. I served this with tortilla chips, and then I had some homemade refried beans that I made up, and this was really good. And my husband took it as leftovers also for dinner for a couple nights for work, and he said it was super moist and tasted just as delicious as when it came out of the oven fresh. Okay, so today we are going to be making, I guess maybe I should have looked up the name of it first. Okay, so today we are making pineapple barbecue meatballs. Typically I do voiceovers for my videos because while I'm making dinner, there's a lot of noise going on in my house between my husband and my son. Usually we have the TV going or the music on for background noise so it's not quiet. And I just don't want you to have to listen to the chaos. But I am actually prepping these meatballs early. It is nap time. My husband works nights and sleeps during the day, and so my son goes and takes a nap with him. So they are both asleep, so it is quiet in here right now. I'm going to take this time to prep these meatballs so that when it comes dinner time, all I have to do is bake them and make the sauce, make the rice, and call it good. I figured I would actually explain what I'm doing instead of doing a voiceover for this one, and then you guys can let me know if you prefer the voiceovers, if you prefer this, if you like a combination, or if it doesn't really matter to you. For the meatballs, you need a pound of ground beef, and it looks kind of gross because I had to defrost it. Pulled it out of the freezer this morning and it wasn't quite thawed all the way through. Some salt and pepper, which is here in this. An onion that I'm going to finely chop up. 1 large egg, some minced garlic, some sesame seed, some breadcrumbs, and then it calls for cilantro, fresh cilantro, and I made a meal, the Mexican street corn chicken, which you saw in this video, and I didn't realize that I needed cilantro for both that and this, so I used all of the cilantro for that because it was a small bundle or a small bunch. So I'm just going to use dried cilantro, and I'll add a little bit more so that the flavor is kind of the same. I'd prefer fresh, but we're going to make do with what we have because I am not running to the store, which is 25 minutes away, just for cilantro. So let me chop up that onion, and then basically you just put everything in the mixer, mix it up really well, form balls. I'm going to put it on a cookie sheet and pop it in the fridge until dinner, which is how or when we will bake it, and we'll make the sauce, and we'll serve this with rice. So let's go ahead and get this all mixed together. This recipe specifically says to use a mixer or a hand mixer to really get the meatballs well combined. So I'm just gonna use my KitchenAid here. I love my KitchenAid. I leave it on the counter because I use it so often. It's really handy for a lot of things. I do have a hand mixer, but I thought this was just easier today than getting that out. We're gonna use this, and basically you just combine all of your ingredients and mix it up really well until you have your meatball mixture. So I am starting with the ground beef. I'm gonna wash my hands. And very rarely do I actually measure things out, except for when I'm baking, because baking is more of a science and I don't understand how baking powder and baking soda and all of that works. Otherwise, I pretty much just eyeball it because I've been working in the kitchen for a very long time. I will leave the recipe down below though, in case you are not as comfortable and you want the exact recipe. It does call for 1 large onion, and this onion that I just chopped up was like extra large. So I'm gonna use about half of it because I know if I put too much onion in there, my family's not going to like it. So I will add in about a half of the onion that I chopped, and I did chop it up pretty fine. You could use more or less, and then I'll just save the rest for another recipe this week. You need some garlic, and I'm just using the pre-minced jar of garlic. It also asks, or it calls for 1 scallion. I don't have that, and so I'm just not even going to add it. I think we'll be okay. 1 large egg. 3 tablespoons of breadcrumbs. A tablespoon of sesame seeds, which is about what I have left. Hopefully I don't need that for another recipe that I have already planned this week. Some cilantro. I'm gonna add quite a bit because dried cilantro isn't as potent or flavorful as fresh cilantro, so I want to make sure that we get that flavor in there, and then salt and pepper to taste. So I'm gonna hold back a little bit on the salt, just do a little bit of that, and then we'll do a nice hefty helping of pepper. And then you mix this up until it's really well combined, and then we'll make it into our meatballs. Did you guys see that fling off the back? Lovely. Okay, I think I'm gonna add just a little bit more breadcrumb. Mix that up. Okay, that looks good to me. Here is our meatball mixture. Looks pretty good to me. I'm going to get a pan out and we are going to roll these out into meatballs. I just have a medium cookie dough scoop here. I'm gonna scoop these out and then I will roll them with my hands to get them in a better shape. So from that pound of ground beef, we got 15 good sized meatballs. You could get more if you used a smaller scoop or even if you just made them by hand. But using the scoop helps to make them all the same size. So I am going to just lightly cover these with plastic wrap and put them in the fridge until we are ready to start making them. And then it says to bake at 410 degrees for 10 to 15 minutes, but I might need to do a little longer since they are kind of on the bigger side. And when we get to that point, then we will make our sauce. Okay, back to the voiceovers. So now it is time to make the sauce, and I am doubling this recipe. So I am adding in some pineapple juice and some liquid aminos, or you could use soy sauce if you wanted. We use liquid aminos instead. Some tomato paste, which is the only thing I didn't completely double because I just had this small can of it. Cornstarch, some molasses, some honey, and the honey was not coming off of my measuring spoon very easy. I was getting annoyed with how slow it was going. Some sesame oil. Worcestershire sauce. Ginger, and I'm just using this ginger paste. Some garlic, and I'm just using garlic powder, and then whisking that all together. And then I realized that I forgot to add in the chunks of pineapple. So you also want to do that, and then you just let this simmer on the stove and let it thicken up. And then you're going to add in your cooked meatballs to kind of coat them all together. We didn't love this sauce, but I think it's because it was a little too sweet for us, and my husband, I should have known, the onion pieces and the meatballs were a little too much. But we served it over rice, and then we gave the leftovers to my mom actually, so she could give it a try. The next recipe is a mashed potato casserole with crispy chicken. This is very similar to a KFC bowl, and my husband is in love with peeling potatoes for me, which I am super thankful for, because one of my least favorite things to do is peel potatoes. So he wanted to show you his potato peeling skills. So he peeled up the potatoes for me, and then once he was done with all of those, then I went in and did my part. So the base of this is mashed potatoes. So I am just then dicing up the potatoes. They don't have to be a certain size. I just boil them this way because they boil faster when you cut them up. So I chopped them up, and then I put water in a pan just until it was covering the potatoes, and then I put them on the stove and boil them until they are fork tender. And I do add a little bit of salt onto my potatoes as well. And then this recipe needed some shredded cheese. So once again, my husband is in here helping me with the cool gadget. And then to make my mashed potatoes, I use butter, milk, salt, and pepper, and my hand mixer. And I don't have measurements for this because it's based on your liking. We like creamier potatoes, and so I just kind of see how they're looking, and then I did add in a little more milk to make them a little more smooth and creamy. And then you're going to take a dish. You could use a small baking dish. I just used a pie dish, and spray the bottom and put your mashed potatoes in the bottom. And then you are going to take a can of corn and put that on top. After your corn is on there, you're going to layer the shredded cheese. And I did put a little salt and pepper on top of that corn. And then you're going to put some chicken tenders. I'm using frozen. I think these are like the mostly cooked ones these are the Tyson brand. And you chop them up into pieces, put them on top there, and then you put that in the oven. Normally you would make like a brown gravy using gravy mix with this. We don't like brown gravy. We prefer like a milk gravy, so that's what I'm making. So I just put some butter and flour in a pan to make a roux, and then added milk until it was the consistency we like, and then I just seasoned with salt and pepper. This is what it looked like when it came out. We just cooked it until those chicken strips were done and crispy, and this is just how we served it. We put the gravy over top, and I didn't make anything to go with it, but this was really good. So I think even with a brown gravy, if you liked that, it'd be really good. And like I said, it tasted like a KFC bowl. The last recipe I'm sharing with you is a chicken tetrazzini. This was a really easy recipe and tasted a lot like chicken noodle soup, which I don't care for chicken noodle soup, but my husband likes it, so he really enjoyed this. So it's 1 can of cream of chicken soup, some sour cream, some cooked chicken, and I already had this bag of seasoned chicken in my freezer, which is how I came up with this recipe, because I had the chicken and the cream of chicken soup to use up. Some salt and pepper, and some chicken broth, and then you want to mix that up. And you are also going to melt some butter to put into this. So while I was mixing it up, I was melting some butter in the microwave, and you add that in there as well. And then this recipe calls for linguine noodles, but I wasn't able to find any at the store. So we had some angel hair pasta on hand already. So I just used that because I couldn't find it like at any grocery store at all. And I think it worked out okay. It probably would have held up a little better with the thicker linguine, but it was fine. And then you just put that in the bottom of a baking dish. Again, I'm using a 9x13 and it is greased. And then you top it with shredded mozzarella and some grated Parmesan cheese. And this night, actually, we had some stuff going on and we didn't all eat at the same time. So I didn't get pictures of our plates. But you just put it in the oven until it's like bubbly and the cheese is melted. And then we just had this with some buttered bread on the side to go with it. And and I also made some broccoli to go with this as well. Some Tuscan seasoned broccoli. But that's everything that I have to share with you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed these new recipes. Let me know down in the comments, is your family more of a comfort, we know we like the recipes so we stick with it, or are you adventurous and try new recipes every now and then? Don't forget to subscribe before you go. If you could also hit the thumbs up button, that helps me out. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah if you are new here. Today I have a what's for dinner video to share with you, and these are easy meals that we ate the last couple of weeks before we moved. So this was using up a lot of things that we already had in our house, or really simple meals that I could throw together without needing cookbooks and a lot of ingredients, things like that. So the first meal I'm sharing with you is just a taco bowl recipe, and you can make these however you want, really. There's so many options. So I'm starting out by cooking a pound of ground beef, and then I make my own taco seasoning instead of using a packet. But if you had the pre-made packet, go ahead and use that. So the only thing that I do to the meat while it is browning is add salt and pepper. And then once it is almost cooked through, not completely because I don't want it to dry out, I start adding in my seasonings. If you just use the taco seasoning, that's what you would do here now. For my taco seasoning, typically I add garlic powder, chili powder, sweet Spanish paprika, just not smoked paprika, onion powder, coriander, cayenne, and I only add just a little bit of this because I don't want it to get too spicy, some cumin. And then you mix that all together, and I add a little bit of water and let the meat simmer in the sauce then that I've created, and it will thicken up as it sits there and simmers. And then to assemble the taco bowls, we have these Azteca brand taco bowls that are a thin taco shell, and it comes in a kit with the shape thing. You just put them in the oven and bake them according to the instructions on the back of the box until they are to your crispiness liking. And then this is my bowl, so I put refried beans in the bottom, some shredded lettuce, some taco meat, some cheese sauce, some cilantro, onion, tomato, shredded cheese, sour cream, and some taco sauce. And my husband usually just does beans, meat, and cheese. But these are really good. and it's like a whole meal in itself and super filling. The second meal I'm sharing with you is a crack chicken sandwich recipe. So I'm using my Instant Pot for this, but you don't have to. And I'm going to start out by making the chicken. So you put some water in the bottom, and I will leave this recipe linked down below because I did follow a recipe. And then I have 2 chicken breasts that I just kind of cut up into pieces so it wouldn't take so long to cook. 1 ranch seasoning packet, and I do also have the big shaker bottle, but this is actually my mom's house and she had a packet, so I went ahead and used that. A little bit of garlic powder and some pepper, and then some parsley flakes as well. And then 1 block of cream cheese, and you do want to cut it up into cubes so that it melts a little bit better in the time that you are processing the chicken or cooking the chicken in the Instant Pot. Your lid will then go on, and you want to make sure that it is on sealing, not venting, then it won't ever come to pressure. And then I did a manual cook on these for 17 minutes, and you just want to make sure that your chicken is done all the way through. When it's done, I let it natural release for 10 minutes and then release the rest of the pressure myself. And then I pulled the chicken out so that it could be shredded. But while you're doing that, you want to put your Instant Pot on the saute function and add in your shredded cheese. I used Monterey Jack. You could use whatever shredded cheese you like, and stir it around, and then that's going to start to thicken a little bit with that cheese in there. And then what I love about the Instant Pot is it cooks the chicken so well, and it's moist, and it is literally falling apart with this fork. Like, I was putting no effort into pulling this chicken apart. It was beautiful. And then once it is all shredded, you add that back into your pot and mix it around, and your sauce should be a little thicker now. And then you're also going to add in some crumbled bacon, which I cooked as the Instant Pot was cooking up the chicken. Once everything is stirred together, you are ready to serve. We served these on buns, and then I made some homemade fries and some baked beans to go with them, and it was really easy and absolutely delicious. Our next meal are some Philly cheesesteak sandwiches, which are pretty fast and easy to make because I use some pre-seasoned meat. So I like peppers and onions on mine. My husband does not. And it was just us eating this night. So I didn't cut up a bunch of peppers. I just have these mini peppers that I'm using, and then a little bit of an onion. And I will be sauteing those up in some butter. And then I used this pre-seasoned Philly cheesesteak meat that I got at Walmart, and you just cook it until it's done. So you cook it on one side for a little bit, flip it over, cook it on the other side. It goes into the pan frozen, so it takes a little bit to thaw it and cook it, and you just want to chop it up, and then you're just going to cook it until it's done, until you can't see any more pink. I like to make ours just a little bit on the crispy side. And then in my other pan, I have the peppers and the onions going. And after I take those out, I actually put our buns in there to toast them up just a little bit. And then I put Cheese Whiz on our sandwiches. Not everybody agrees that that is a Philly cheesesteak, but I put some Cheese Whiz on the bottom. And then on mine, I put the peppers and the onions. And then you put the meat on top and then some sliced provolone cheese. And I just popped these in the oven at 350 for like a couple minutes to melt the cheese. And these were really good, and I just served them with some frozen French fries. The next meal was supposed to be a chili cheese dog slider, but they didn't have the slider buns when I had gone to the store this week. But we did have these hot dog buns, so I decided to just do regular chili cheese dogs. This is such an easy meal to make because there's no actual cooking involved. So how I make them is I just put my buns out, put my hot dogs in the buns, and then I bought pre-made chili from a can and put that on top. Sometimes I will add onion to mine. My husband doesn't like that, and I didn't feel like cutting an onion this night. So chili and then shredded cheese. And my cheese was still frozen, so it stuck to my fingers when I was trying to put it on here. But then you just put them in the oven at 350 for 10-15 minutes until everything is heated through. Because everything's pre-cooked, you don't have to worry about it getting done. You just want your hot dogs and your chili nice and warmed up. And this is what they looked like when they were done. We just ate them with some chips. This is a week after I made those taco bowls, and I'm going to make some beef enchiladas. I made the taco meat the same way that I made it for the taco bowls. I didn't think that you needed to see that twice in one video. But I just took some red enchilada sauce and put a little bit on the bottom of a baking dish. And then I used these small white corn tortillas that I did warm up a little bit just because they're a little easier to work with. And we only did cheese and beef for these. So I layered I put a little cheese in each tortilla. And then I used a cookie dough scoop so that they would kind of be even. But because these shells were so small, it didn't mean anything. It didn't, like the cookie scoop didn't do anything. So then you just add some beef to each of them, roll them up, and put them in the baking dish. Once you have your baking dish full, I just poured the rest of the sauce on top, sprinkled a little bit of shredded cheese, and this is kind of like the chili cheese dogs. Everything is already pre-cooked, so you're just warming them up. So I put them in the oven at 350 degrees for I think 15 to 20 minutes, just until everything's heated through again, and then the cheese is nice and melted. And we just ate these as they are. We had some tortilla chips with them for a little bit of crunch, but that was pretty much it. And that is all that I have to share with you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this gave you some inspiration to just make some simple meals once in a while. It doesn't always have to be new meals or fancy or new ingredients or anything like that. 3 pasta recipes. Pasta is fairly inexpensive and easy to make, so it's a really good idea, especially when grocery prices are going up, to kind of stretch your grocery budget a little bit. Plus, it makes a lot of food for cheap. So the first recipe I'm sharing is a pizza pasta bake. I started by boiling some noodles. We used rotini noodles, but you could use whatever short noodle you like. And then you would normally cook up some ground beef, but we had spaghetti a few days before this, and so we had some leftover sauce in the fridge that I wanted to use up. And then you put in 1 jar of pizza sauce and some cut up pepperoni. If I did not have the leftover spaghetti sauce, I would definitely add in 2 jars of the pizza sauce, just because you don't want it to get too dry. And then you add in a little bit of shredded mozzarella cheese, and this does get baked. So I have a 9x13 casserole dish here. I just poured it in, and I did grease the pan, and I, laid it out evenly and topped with some more cheese, and then baked this covered for 15 minutes and then uncovered it for another 10 minutes to melt the cheese. Everything is cooked, but you want to warm everything back through just to make sure it's nice and warm and bubbly. And then we served this with a Caesar salad and some garlic bread. This made a lot of leftovers too. I put the extras in some meal prep containers that we actually kept in the freezer so that my dad and my husband could take it to work for lunches. So it worked out really well with how much food was here. The next recipe that I am making is a cheesy chicken pasta. This was really good. So you need some shredded white cheddar, and I couldn't find any shredded, so I just went ahead and got a block of cheese and shredded it myself with this really nice shredder that I have. And then I cut up some chicken, and my tip for you in the kitchen is to use scissors whenever possible. Cutting chicken can be kind of tedious, especially if you have to cut them into small cubes like you do for this recipe. And so kitchen scissors work amazing, and it's also easy then to trim off all of the fat and pieces that you don't want. Then you're going to add a little bit of oil to a skillet and cook up your chicken. And the seasonings for this are some ground mustard, some dried thyme, some oregano, and then you can also do salt and pepper if you would like. And you just want to cook that all the way through. After it's been cooked, you will remove it from the pan and add in some butter and let the butter melt. Then you're going to add in a couple tablespoons of flour to soak up that butter, and this is you're going to be making a roux. Once the flour has soaked up all of the liquid, you're going to add in the liquids to make your sauce. The recipe calls for white wine, but we don't drink alcohol, even when I'm not pregnant. So I didn't want to buy a whole bottle of wine to only use like a 1/4 cup of it. So I actually just used chicken broth instead. And then you add in some Dijon mustard, and then it calls for whole milk, but I had some half and half in the fridge that I wanted to use up. So I used part half and half, and then the rest of the measurement of whole milk. And you just want to add in these liquids a little bit at a time, because if you do add them too fast, your sauce is going to break. So you add a little bit, get it mixed up really well, add a little more, and repeat that process until all of your liquids are added. After that's all added, you're going to add in all of that cheese. So the entire 8-ounce block of cheese that we shredded goes into this, and mix that up. And then the recipe calls for fresh thyme, but I didn't want to buy a whole thing of fresh thyme just for one recipe. So I just added dried thyme and then some red pepper flakes. And I just added a little bit because I didn't want it to be too spicy, but I definitely could have added more. And then your chicken goes back into your sauce. And while I was making this sauce, I was also boiling noodles. I used macaroni noodles for this. You then just add your noodles in. I don't have a clip of that, but you add in your noodles and mix it all together. This also made a ton of food, and we did freeze this in the meal prep containers as well, so that again, it's like a homemade freezer meal for my dad and my husband, or when baby comes, which will be very soon. We also have some meals in the freezer so that I don't have to worry about cooking. And then we serve this with some green beans and some garlic bread. The last recipe I'm sharing with you are some lasagna roll-ups. This is a fun way to do lasagna that's a little different. So I got some garden vegetable sauce and put a little bit in the bottom of an 8x8 baking dish. And then I had browned up some hamburger with Italian seasoning and added a little bit of the sauce to that, but not all of it. And then I have a container of cottage cheese, and to it I am adding some basil, oregano, parsley, and pepper, and just mixing that up. And I should have put it in another bowl so that it would mix easier, but I was trying not to make more dishes. And then I cooked up some lasagna noodles, and I cooled them down with cold water. And to make the roll-ups, you just take a lasagna noodle, and then you put your ricotta cheese mixture on top, and then put some of your meat mixture on top, roll it up, and put it in your baking dish. And I just continued that process until the baking dish was full. And the last row, you'll see that they look a little smaller, and that's because I had a couple noodles that broke, so they weren't quite as big, but it worked out because it fit in the pan a lot better. And then once all of your roll-ups are made, I just poured the rest of the jar of the pasta sauce on there and spread it around. And then I covered it with an Italian blend shredded cheese. And I baked this for about 15 minutes at 350. And that was just to warm everything up and then melt that cheese on the top. We just ate this as is. Like, this is the only thing that we had this night because they were pretty filling. But that is everything that I have to share with you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you can make some of these cheaper pasta meals to kind of stretch your grocery budget and have a delicious meal for your family. So getting right into the video, the first recipe that I'm sharing with you are some hot ham and cheese sandwiches. I found these croissant buns at Aldi, and they ended up being really good. We made these on the smoker because we already had the smoker going, but you could also just make these in the oven. So I'm starting out with some sliced cheese. I used American, Colby Jack, and provolone for these, depending on who wanted what cheese. And then I just bought some deli sliced ham. You could buy like a ham and or if you had leftover ham, and use that as well, but again, just use the deli ham. So I just put some mayo on the buns, put the cheese down on both sides so it was plenty cheesy, and then I did 4 pieces of ham, and I thought that was a good amount. The buns were kind of big, so maybe you could add some more meat if you wanted it a little more filling and less like you were just eating the bread. But like I said, for the first ones I did American cheese, and then for a couple of them I did provolone and Colby Jack cheese, and then I also did some provolone and American on the last one. And then we put these on the smoker at 350 degrees, and I think they were only on there for 10 to 15 minutes because everything is already cooked. Obviously, you are just warming everything together and melting that cheese, and it was perfect. If I made these in the oven, I also still would have wrapped them in the foil to contain the heat, keep them warm, and really make sure that that cheese is going to melt. This is what they looked like when they were done. Absolutely delicious. I don't think I've had hot ham and cheese since when I was in school, probably middle school, high school, and it was just really good to have. The next recipe I'm sharing is a jalapeno popper chicken slider recipe. So I am just starting out by cutting up some jalapenos, and I use this jalapeno core tool, which is absolutely amazing. Like, did you see how easy that came out? This is my mom's, and I'm pretty sure she got it from Pampered Chef. I will link a similar one down below if you're interested. This makes it so easy. You don't have to cut them open. You don't have to touch the seeds. And if you're making traditional jalapeno poppers and you want to stuff them, it's hollow. Like, it's absolutely perfect. But for these sandwiches, I need them diced up. So I am using this chopper, which I will also link down below. This thing is so handy. And it's dishwasher safe, which is great because the grates are kind of a pain to clean if you have to hand wash it, which I have done, but the dishwasher makes it so easy if you have a dishwasher. But I just cut them up into smaller pieces so I knew that they would fit, and then you put them on the grates and then just chop it up, and it makes them all the same size. They're small, so if you were using something else like onions or peppers for a different recipe, they're small enough that your kids or picky eaters in your house, maybe a husband, wouldn't even notice. So after I got those chopped up, this whole time I was also cooking some chicken, and I just actually boiled the chicken for this. You could use rotisserie chicken, you could use canned chicken, you could use whatever you wanted. You could cook it in the Instant Pot, you could bake it, lots of options. So that was cooking. Cut up my jalapenos, and then I have these slider rolls that I'm just cutting in half. My chicken was done, and I'm using my hand mixer to shred it. Using a mixer is the easiest way to shred it up. You just don't want to over shred it. Then I'm adding in 1 block of cream cheese, and it's not completely softened, but it's going into the chicken, which is warm. And then use your kitchen mixer also to add in the cream cheese. It's super easy and it mixes it in really well. Then I have some shredded Monterey Jack cheese, and I put about half of the bag in there, so about a cup of the cheese, and mix that around. I will leave the link to this recipe down in the description box if you are interested in looking at it, so you can have exact measurements. And then I had also cooked some bacon, and I'm just cutting that up into smaller pieces. I should have used kitchen scissors to cut these up because it would have been easier. The bacon was still hot too, but I just wanted to use a knife that I had already used for something else, so I wasn't dirtying something else that I would have to wash. But you add the bacon into your mixture and stir that around. At this point, if everybody in your house is eating or likes jalapenos, add in your jalapenos now. We have people in the house that don't like anything spicy, so I have not added it. So I'm going to take some of the mixture and put it on the bottom part of the slider buns. This is going to be for the people that don't like jalapenos. Then I'm going to add the jalapenos into the rest of the mixture, mix that up, put it on the other half of the slider bun, and then those of us that do like spice eat that part. Then you sprinkle a little more of that Monterey Jack cheese on top and put your top buns, or like the top of the rolls, on top. After that, you are going to want to melt a little bit of butter and add in some garlic, and then I just used a silicone basting brush to put the butter on top, the melted butter on top of the slider buns, and then this goes into the oven for not very long. Again, I'll leave the recipe down below because I don't remember for sure how long I cooked them or at what temperature, but you're really just like crisping up the top and warming it all the way through. These were really good, and they're smaller, so we each had 2, and then we served it with baked beans, but definitely good. And my husband had the side without the jalapenos, and he said it was good. So even if you don't like the jalapenos, it's still a really good like chicken bacon mixture. The last recipe I have to share with you today is a buffalo chicken grilled cheese. So taking your grilled cheese and elevating it just a little. This time for the chicken, I am cooking it in the oven. So I'm putting some pepper, and then I have this buffalo seasoning. If you don't have the buffalo seasoning, not a big deal because you are going to be using sauce later. You could also use garlic powder, onion powder. You could put some salt on there if you wanted, just however you would like your chicken. Again, for this recipe, you could also use rotisserie chicken or canned chicken. Make your chicken however you want for this. Just don't season it too specifically, like you wouldn't want to put taco seasoning on it, obviously, or something like that. So I just cooked that in the oven until it was done. Once it was done, again, I'm getting my hand mixer out and I'm going to shred this chicken up. If you wanted chunkier grilled cheese, you could also just cut this chicken into pieces, but I decided to do shredded. Then you're going to take your favorite buffalo sauce. We are just using this medium wing sauce. It's the Great Value brand, but use whatever kind you like. And then I just mix that in with the chicken until it was the sauce level that I liked. Make it as saucy as you want. And then we have this, we've always just called it the grilled cheese pan. It's just like a flat griddle type pan. So I buttered one side of the bread, and I was using sandwich bread. Typically I like to use Texas toast, but with my grocery order, this was a substitution. So butter one side and put it down. On one side of the bread, then I am putting some shredded cheddar cheese. On top of that will go the chicken mixture. And I made these pretty thick so that they would be nice and filling. And then on top of that, I still had some Monterey Jack cheese left over from when we did the chicken sliders earlier in the week. So I put a little bit of that on top. You could use whatever kind of cheeses you like with your buffalo stuff. I mean, I guess pepper jack would be good if you wanted an extra kick. Provolone would be good because it would be kind of salty with the spicy. This is just what we had on hand. And then I put a piece of bread on top with the butter side facing up. And you just cook those on both sides until they're golden. And everything is heated through. And we serve these with waffle fries. Today we are going to be making a Olive Garden chicken pasta, and it goes in the crock pot, so really easy. So you're going to need some noodles, but you don't actually cook them until later when everything is done. So I'm just using elbow macaroni. You could use whatever kind of pasta you like though. Then I have some chicken breasts. These are still frozen, so I will just cook the chicken longer than what the recipe says. 1 block of cream cheese. I thought that I got Parmesan cheese, but I got Asiago, so I'm going to use this. We do have a little bit of Parmesan cheese in the fridge actually, I just thought of, so I'll probably grab that out as well so that we use it up and then it has the Parmesan flavor. And then a 16-ounce bottle of the Olive Garden Italian dressing. I'm sure you could use any Italian dressing that you like. Aldi just happened to have the Olive Garden brand. So you put these ingredients together in your crock pot, cook on high for 4 hours or low for 5 to 6 hours. I'm going to cook mine on low for the majority of the time. And then getting closer to dinner time, I'll check the chicken since it is still frozen to see if I need to bump it up to high to finish it out. And then you cook your pasta and add your pasta. And I will leave the recipe linked down in the description if you would like to make this and have the exact measurements and all of that. So let's go ahead and get into it. So first I am just going to spray the bottom of my crock pot. My chicken is still frozen, so I'll have to cook it a little bit longer, but then you just add in the cream cheese, add in the Italian dressing, and then add in some Parmesan cheese. And I did find this Parmesan cheese in the fridge, so I just used this instead of the Asiago. And then I cooked it on low, and I cooked it for about 7 hours because the chicken was frozen, and then it fell apart. I was going to take it out of the crock pot to show you how to shred it, but it literally started falling apart. And then I cooked up my macaroni noodles and threw those in there as well. And when I plated it up, I took some of the Asiago cheese and just grated a little bit on top. And then we served this with some nectarines and then just some buttered bread. The next meal I am going to share with you is a shredded pork baked potato. So kind of like a loaded baked potato. So first I'm just starting out by cooking up my pork. And I got this at Aldi, so it was a pretty good price. I don't want the string left on because I don't need it to hold together in any sort of shape. So I am just removing that, and then I'm going to be seasoning it. And I did season both sides, but I only showed you guys one side. And so I am using some garlic powder, some garlic salt, some paprika, oregano leaves, onion powder, ground mustard, and then I have this Pampered Chef Chipotle dry seasoning that I used. And then I did also throw on some Worcestershire sauce and salt and pepper. I let that cook all day. It cooked on low for 8 hours. And then when it was closer to dinner time, I got our baked potatoes ready. So I washed them really well. I'm using baking potatoes. And then poking it with a fork, poking some holes in it, and then drizzling with olive oil and putting some salt on top. And then I wrap it in foil and put it in the microwave, or not the microwave, in the oven at 375 for an hour. And then they weren't quite done, but you can cook baked potatoes in a microwave. So I just took the foil off of them and I finished them in the microwave, which is why I messed up and said microwave before. So I just put them in the microwave. I cut them in half and put them in the microwave for 7 more minutes. So I am just shredding up the pork, and because it had been cooking all day, it came apart really easy. I'm barely pulling anything here. The biggest thing I had to do here was take off the fat. This was a pretty fatty piece of pork, and so I just wanted to make sure that I got all of that out so that we weren't biting into a big chunk of fat while we were eating.
I'm out of reasons, I'm out of rhyme, but I'll only tell you that I'm out of time. I'm sick of love songs, I'm tired of this, and I wanna tell you straight just like it is. You're watching me like you want me.
Before these, we just took our baked potato and we put some nacho cheese on there, the pork, some barbecue sauce, and then I also put some onions and jalapenos on mine. But this was really good. And then we used the leftover pork later in the week to have barbecue pork sandwiches. The next recipe I have is an easy cornbread taco bake. This was really good, but there are a couple things that I would change. Okay, so first you're starting with a boxed corn muffin mix. I just use this 98-cent Jiffy one. Mix it up according to the box directions, and then I put it in an 8x8 baking dish. If I were making this again, I would use a bigger baking dish, not a 9x13. I think that would be too big, but like an in-between one, between the 8x8 and the 9x13, because this was really thick. But then you put that in the oven and start baking it. And I will leave the recipes for anything I made off of a recipe in this video linked down in the description so that you can follow it exactly if you would like to make these recipes. But while that was baking, I started making up my taco meat. So I just have some hamburger that I am browning up, and then I do have this taco seasoning blend from Sam's Club instead of a packet, But a little tip, the lid of these containers is about 1/4 of a cup, which is approximately how much comes in a packet. So I just use that much, and then I like to add a little bit more chili powder to our taco meat when I'm using a mix like this, and then adding in a little bit of water and letting that simmer. And then you're going to add a can of corn that's drained and a can of Rotel, and I just had an Aldi brand one, but the tomatoes with the chilies in it, and let that simmer while your cornbread is finishing. And then you're going to take some sour cream and mix it with shredded cheese, and that is going to be kind of like a sour cream topping, if you will. So then you pull your cornbread out, and mine was not done all the way through, but this goes back in the oven, so that's okay. But this is also why I would use a bigger pan, because the outsides of this was pretty much done, but the inside, the middle, was still very underdone. But you just put your taco meat mixture on top, and then you put your sour cream cheese mixture on top of that, and top with a little more cheese, and then this goes back into the oven. And it looked really pretty coming out. It did not hold together, like the layers didn't hold together when we took it out of the pan to eat, but so it didn't look pretty, but it tasted very good. And then we just topped ours with some hot sauce, and we ate it with some tortillas as well.
Like it is, bend open my heart like you're fearless. Steal all the gold you can get. Show me your love, leave me breathless, breathless. I'm out of patience, I'm out of feels, but I guess I'm waiting around for something real. I'm going crazy, like what's the deal? 'Cause I want you to show me what you feel. You're watching me like you want me, but you're still holding back, still holding back. Honestly, you're annoying me with the way that you keep playing. Show me your love like it is. Bend open my heart like you're fearless. Steal all the gold you can get.
Tonight for dinner, we are going to do a pizza pull-apart bread, or bubble pizza is the recipe that my mom had when we were growing up, is what it was called. This can also be made in a bundt cake pan, which is where the pull-apart comes from. It's kind of like monkey bread if you do it that way. We don't have a bundt pan, so I'm just going to use an 8x8 baking dish. But for this recipe, you're just going to need a jar of some pizza sauce, whatever kind you would like, 2 cans of biscuits that you're going to cut up, and then whatever toppings you like on pizza. We're just doing pepperonis and cheese tonight, so I have some pepperonis. I have some Asiago cheese here from a previous recipe that I didn't use all of, so I'm going to shred some of that up. And then I have 2 partial bags of mozzarella cheese here that we're going to go ahead and get used up. So really simple process. You just cut the biscuits up, put your toppings on it, top with cheese, cover with foil, and then you will bake at 350 degrees for 20 minutes. Take the foil off and bake for another 10 to 15 minutes until your cheese is nice and bubbly and starts to get golden on the top. But very simple, easy, delicious recipe, especially if you're in a hurry and you don't need to dirty any dishes. You just, except for what you're baking in. Like, there's no bowls involved. I am going to use kitchen scissors to cut up the biscuits, and I will shred the cheese, but other than that, like, there's no bowls, no spoons, nothing like that. So it's really great, especially if you've got a lot of summer activities going on or anything like that. So let's go ahead and get this thrown together so we can get it in the oven. So like I said, you literally just cut up the biscuits with scissors and just cut them into small pieces. They don't have to be uniform or anything like that. Okay, so you can't see my face, but I have decided I'm just gonna do 1 can of the biscuits because this is already pretty full. And there's only 3 adults eating tonight. Ryder might not eat some of this because he's been going through a picky phase for what seems like forever. So this is gonna be plenty for just the 3 of us. So I'm actually not going to do the other can of biscuits. I'll just throw those in the freezer or pop it into the, or put it back in the fridge or pop them into the freezer or something. So now we're gonna add the toppings. Maybe if I can get the jar of, I can't get the pizza sauce open, so I need to recruit some help. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Pour the sauce over your biscuits. Put the pepperoni on top of that and then the cheese on top of that, and then you're gonna cover with foil and bake. The recipe that I have in our family cookbook said to cook for 20 minutes. And then some of the recipes I found online said 30 minutes. I cooked this for probably 35 minutes, and some of the biscuits were still just a touch underdone. The biscuits that were in the middle, that might be because of the size of pan that I used. If I used one that was a little bit bigger, I might have had a little more luck with it only taking 20 minutes. But either way, a really good recipe, especially for kiddos. And we did not serve this with anything. We just ate it as is on this night, kind of like you would pizza. The last recipe I'm going to share with you are mini barbecue bacon cheddar meatloafs. So this is a different recipe that I've never tried. So you take a pound of ground beef, some sweet chili sauce, some bacon that I had cooked earlier, and some cheese that I had shredded myself. I'm using Colby Jack cheese. This recipe, I will leave it linked. It was, I cut the recipe in half because I didn't want to make quite as many. And then you add in some breadcrumbs, an egg, and some seasonings. So we've got onion powder, seasoned salt, and garlic powder. And I did put in a little bit of pepper. And then some for sauce to make it like the sauce. There's Worcestershire sauce and some yellow mustard. And you mix that all together. You can follow directions, measurements perfectly if you would like. With something like this, I usually don't. If it seems too wet, I just add in a little more breadcrumbs. If it seems too dry, I just add in a little more of whatever the sauce mixture is. So mix that all together, and then it goes into a muffin tin. You don't need to spray this because your beef is going to be a little greasy and it's not going to stick. So then once they're all filled, you want to create a little bit of a divot in the middle because you are going to then top with some barbecue sauce. And I just have this one my dad got from work. So we're going to put a little bit of that on top and then bake it. These were good. They were on the sweet side, probably because of the chili sauce, but not bad. Not like a bad sweet. They just were sweet. I think it would also be really good if you added in like some chili powder or cayenne to make it kind of like a sweet and spicy, but the bacon in them tasted really good. And then we served these with mashed potatoes. If you made it to the end, go ahead and leave me a heart emoji down in the comments so that I know that you stuck it out. You watched them all. Again, don't forget to subscribe before you go. I would love to have you join my little YouTube family here, which isn't very big right now, but I appreciate every one of you that is here. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.